Hello and welcome to another video. In this video I will show you how you can write a custom script to control who can execute a manual GitLab pipeline job. If you want to see how, stay tuned. For this demo, I have in my GitLab SaaS instance set up two groups. One of them is called Applications, in which I do have my demo application, and one group is called Allowed Users. This Allowed Users group will be utilized to grant other users membership to this group, which we then will use to identify who can actually run a job, a manual pipeline job in our pipeline, and who cannot. Let's dive a little bit more into this. First, let's take a look at the application that I wrote here. Obviously, for a demo purposes here, or for the demo purposes here, this application will not do much. I do have here on my application, in my repository, I do have two branches. If I'm going over to the dev branch, you will see I have a GitLab CI/YAML file, and I do have a Python script. For this demo, I will stick with Python. You obviously can write it also in Ruby or any other language of your choice. However, for this demo, we'll stick with Python. So let's go ahead and take a look at the contents of my GitLab CI/YAML file, and then we will take a little bit more time and dive into the custom Python script. For this demo, I will not go ahead and clone this repository. I will use a feature that is built into GitLab SaaS, and we use just simply the web IDE here. So when you're in your repository, you can go into edit, and then you can click on web IDE, and it will give you a web-based version of Visual Studio Code, and you can program in here as well. So let's take a look at my GitLab CI/YAML. I have a lot of things commented out for testing. Let me uncomment this because I do not want to have all this commented out. So let me do this, and here we go. So let's go top to bottom here. I define my stages. I do have a test stage, build and deploy. Then here I do have my jobs. I have a test application job. For the demo purposes here, it doesn't do anything other than just echo something out. I do have a two-step build process here. What you can do in GitLab, in case you are not familiar, you can group jobs together by just denoting it one of one, or this actually should be one of two jobs, right? And not one of one. So one of two jobs here, and then this is the second of two jobs. And I'm just echoing out some string here. Now, where we will be looking more into the permissions, who can actually execute a job and who cannot, we'll use this deploy job here. So I have my deploy application. It's running in the deploy stage. I am using the Python image from Docker Hub because I am executing a Python script. So for simplicity and demo purposes, I'm just using the Python image that is available. I do need to install the requests module in my image because it is not available by default. And then I am saying when this job is being triggered, only run it manually, meaning somebody needs to go into the pipeline and click the play button. If you are not familiar with this, we will get into that in just a little bit. And then I have my dependencies here so that my jobs do behave well, meaning that the build application, one of two jobs, should not run until my test application job has completed. Then the build application second job out of the two jobs should not run until the first one is completed, and deploy should not run until my build application, the second job, has completed. And in case you're not familiar with a web IDE in GitLab, what you can do is once you've made your changes, you can commit your changes to the branch right from here. And to do that, you can see here, I've made one change, the previous change that I uncommented it. I committed already, but I noticed I had another error in here. So I fixed that, and this was this dependency here because we renamed the job 1 of 2. So I needed to fix this here as well. And now you see I have one pending change. And if I want to commit this, I can just click on this icon here, source control icon. I can put my comment, my commit message in here, updated needs, and then I can just commit here straight to my dev branch, and my change has been committed to my dev branch. Next, let's take a look at the Python script. In the Python script here, I will not be using the REST API, but I will be using GraphQL. GraphQL is accessible on GitLab. I will go a little bit into it in just a minute, but let's go through this script first. So as we've said before, we do need to import requests here, the module that we have to install on our Docker image. And then we are constructing our GraphQL query here. I will not dive too much into what exactly is happening in here, and it should suffice to say that we're passing the user in to this function. We are constructing a string that then will be injected here into our query string, and this is where it will be injected. So what we need to do first is the user, and then what groups this user has memberships to. And then we are constructing our header. As you may be familiar with using the REST API, we still need to pass in our access token, and then we're posting our request, and we get the result back, iterate through it, and we will extract from the results that are being returned the group memberships, and we're going through and say if this member is if this user is a member of the allowed users group, then turn allowed to true, which we have defaulted up here to false, and then return just allowed. And then I have a second function here, which is the validate user. This is the actual function that's being executed. We are getting the current user, which is an environment variable, a predefined environment variable in GitLab. It's called GitLab _user _login. This will give you the current logged in user's username. And then I am executing my get user membership. And I'm just saying if this is true, then don't do anything, just exit gracefully, and otherwise just print out you're not permitted and exit with an error or a non-zero exit code, which will then in turn cause the pipeline to fail. But because this is a script, and if the membership is being granted after the fact, the job can just simply be rerun, and I will demonstrate that. So let's take a look real quick at the GraphQL API, which is documented very well on the GitLab page. You can just search up, for example, in Google, GitLab GraphQL, which will give you a link to this page here. And you can browse through it and read through it and learn a little bit more about GraphQL in case you're not all that familiar. But that's one way you can do this. And then there's also some examples in here. So they give you, for example, running examples, and you can learn more about GraphQL as you work your way through this. I do want to note here that there is actually a fairly nice way to learn how GraphQL works with GitLab, and it's called graphical. That's how they pronounce it. If I go on here, so you can use actually graphical, which is an interactive GraphQL site, and you can query against GitLab right from your web browser. So if we're going over to GraphQL over here, so you see this page, and now you can, for example, write your own queries if you want to. So you could go ahead and you can just say in here, for example, query, and then I want to get projects, and you see it's interactive, and it gives you also help here. So we can say we want to have all projects, and then we can say we want to get the nodes, and we want to get the IDs, and we want to get the name of the project, let's just say. So I'm just demonstrating this real quick. Again, this demo is not for GraphQL. This is just to show you that you can use this. So once you have written a query, you can execute it, and it will give you pretty much here on this side, it will give you all the projects that you do have access to and that you can use. There's more to it. There are cursors for pagination and so forth. But again, this is not a GraphQL demo. I just wanted to point out that you can use this to learn more about GraphQL. Let's return back to our application. So now that we've made all the changes and we've walked through the code real quick and we are ready to run our pipeline, let's go ahead and do that. So here I'll go into Build Pipelines. And you see it has run a couple of times already. And we'll just run it manually right now. Normally it would run as soon as you make your commit. I want to run on my dev branch because this is where I currently only have code. And let's click on Run Pipeline, and our pipeline will come up. We have our test application here, and reverting back real quick to the grouping of the jobs, you see I have only one job here that's called Build Application. But you see there is in light gray here the number 2. That means that this job here consists technically out of 2 jobs. If I click on it, you see here Build Application 1 of 2, Build Application 2 of 2. So this is one way how you can group these together. We made these 2 dependent on each other. So you see here this one is executed. This one will not execute until this one is running. So let's wait until these are all done. And then we'll take a look at our manual job and what will happen when I execute it. So the pipeline has finished as far as all automatically triggered jobs have completely successfully completed. And now my deploy job here, which is my manual job, is waiting for me to click this button. So let's go ahead and click the button and see what happens. Let's take a look at the job execution details. This may take a second. It needs to now go out to Docker and download the image onto the runner. As you can see here, we're using a public runner, meaning a GitLab provided runner. I'm not using a private runner. And once it downloaded everything, it will go ahead and it will now, as it says here, prepare the environment. We'll go ahead and it installs requests as we need it. And you see here deploying application. Now you may wonder, why did this happen? This is because I created the allowed users group, and I am automatically as such a member of that group. To test that somebody who is not a member of this group can now not execute this job, I need to log in with a different user ID. And let me do that, and I will be back once I have logged in. So here I'm in an incognito window, and I am in my applications group. I do see my application here. If I go in here, I can go ahead and I can now execute pipelines because I have developer permissions on this group, and so also for the applications of repositories that are within that group. So if I go into build pipelines, and I'm going in here, and I want to run the pipeline, I will go ahead and do that. I will go into my dev branch, and I will run this pipeline. So I will get the same jobs that we saw before. I get my test, I get my build, I get my deploy. Let's let this finish and then manually execute our deploy job and see what the behavior is. So the pipeline has finished. My previous jobs completed successfully, and here is now my manual job. Let me click the play button, and let's go into the job and see what will happen now. It will go through the same paces until it does hit the Python script, and it will validate my group memberships. This user that is currently running the pipeline is not a member of the allowed users group, so the expected behavior here would be that this job will fail. And as expected, it's executing our user validation Python script, and only permitted members can execute this job, and it failed. So now to solve this problem, we would need to grant this user that I'm currently executing the pipeline as membership to the allowed users group. So let's go ahead and do that, and we'll just rerun this one particular job and not the entire pipeline, and see if then this user will be able to do this. If you're not familiar with how you can grant group memberships, you can go into the group that you want to grant membership to. In this case, we are working with this allowed users. You see there's no repos in here, nothing. We'll literally use it just for permissions. And if I want to grant membership, I can just go into Manage, Members, and then I can invite members. I will go ahead and do that real quick. The role for this member doesn't really isn't really important, because we do not check what the permissions actually are. What this script is doing currently, it is only checking if a member, if a user is a member of a particular group. So I will go ahead and do that real quick, because I don't really want to display the email address, and then I will be right back. So here you can see I have added the username, or you can use the email address, but I've added the username. I'm giving it just the guest role right now, and I can say to expire this permission by the end of the week, let's say on the 23rd, and I will just click invite, and then we're good to go. Now that I've granted this user, where the job failed, permissioned, access to the allowed user group, let's just go ahead and rerun this job. So I'll just click up here on retry, run again, and let's see what happens now. But the expected behavior now is that our job will complete successfully. And it did. I granted this user the permission to this group, and our job was we were able to just rerun the job, and now this particular user is able to run the application or the job successfully. I do understand and do know there are other ways to prevent users from running manually triggered jobs. However, sometimes you do not want to involve other concepts and literally just need to go ahead and prevent a single job to be only be executed by members of a specific group. And this demo here shows how you could achieve that completely independent of your subscription level. I'm using the GitLab free version here, and you have seen that this works just fine. So just to summarize again, we have two groups here, my applications group, and in which I have my application. In my application, we are running a pipeline, and we wanted to have a singular manually triggered job that can only be successfully run by users who are a member of this allowed users group, and we've achieved that simply by implementing the Python script. I hope you found this video helpful in your DevOps journey and hopefully also in your GitLab journey. If you would like to see more on GraphQL, please feel free to leave a comment. I'll be more than happy to create another video on GraphQL and dive a little bit more into it if that is something you would like to see. I do appreciate your time, and thank you for watching. Until the next time, thank you.